So this is a fair value gap that caused this drop here. I don't know why some people are having issues joining. I'll talk about that later. I'm still waiting for some people to join. Still waiting for them to join. I don't want to be going back and front. So this morning we had a little bit of bearish movement, and I was also keeping my eyes on the 4 hours here. So we had this fair value gap. You see how it reacted nicely to the low, the 4 hours low of this fair value gap here. This is a fair value gap here to here. Have you seen that? This distance here, that there is no wick. This middle area, this middle part here, that you don't see any wick. That's a fair value gap. So the low here. So the fair value gap low here, you see how it reacted nicely. And one thing you should always be observant about the characteristics of how candlesticks behave when once it gets to a fair value gap is that you will not see anybody painting outside the fair value gap. It's only the wick that will go outside it. So that's one of the characteristics of how candlesticks behave in a fair value gap. So before we started, I pointed out this 1 hour fair value gap. You see how now price is respecting that. So I think this will give us a good opportunity if we want to buy in the 1 minute time frame. And we are trading time first before price, all right? So you should be very conscious of time. You should be very conscious of time. So now every other thing here is very, very insignificant to us. So we delete that. So let's go to the 1 minute. So right in the 1 minute, like I used to take some trades and you ask how I do it. So now here I'll feel very comfortable to buy. Why? Because it's in time. I don't know if you get, and it has started breaking highs. Okay. So I'm very, very comfortable from there to start buying if I want to buy. Okay. Very comfortable from there to start buying. So this is more like the moving average phantom now. So we see that it was coming down. Let me use the trend line stop. So you see it was coming down here, like assume, then a high has been broken here, and inside way, a 1 hour fair value gap. Also, we see that a 4 hour fair value gap was sponsoring higher prices ever since. So we're looking at it coming to this buy side liquidity here. This buy side liquidity. Whatever I'm saying here is also applicable to currency pairs, right? So we also have this fair value gap here. So you know where we are targeting, right? You should know where we are targeting by now. Bullish. So is a buy side liquidity here. So my stop will be right below this low, and my take profit will be above here. Okay, David, you raised your hand. That will be my take profit. But you can as well keep it below this fair value gap. But since you're not really acquainted with how this movement goes here, so you can keep it below this low here. So we are looking at it coming right to this buy side liquidity, resting above there. So this is more like a live trade I'm doing with you guys. All right, guys, you see, want to see it push higher here. So we had a fair value gap here. You seen that fair value gap there. So if you add your moving average phantom to this chart, so this movement here has already given me enough confidence that this is not going to come back to this fair value gap here. So I can shift my stop loss right below that fair value gap. Let me see. So also we now have a new fair value gap here. We have this small fair value gap here. So I'm also keeping an eye on that. Have that small fair value gap, but it will make more sense if it doesn't come there and it just start going up to that buy side liquidity we have resting above there. Right, so this means more like doing it live with you guys. So we'll write this move higher, higher, and higher. So let's see what we have in the 15 minutes. Let me see where we can get. So let's just target this buy side first, but we still have buy side resting above here. Still have buy side liquidity resting above here. Buy side. So we are very conscious of a timing first. We don't just jump in because we've seen a trade. We are very conscious of the timing. Why this is happening is that the market is programmed, like it is scheduled to a time, right? So you see the most significant moves and your setup will play out very well when you have a time-based analysis and narrative backed up to it. So here, as I told you, okay, for those that were not here earlier before I started, let me show you. So I set my time to New York time. It is scheduled, guys. So like this trade here, I did the analysis here with you guys and I showed you why I wanted it to go to, and you've seen how it is going right to that place. Why? Because this stuff is scheduled, like there's an algorithm running behind it. So once once it is its time to move, it will move the direction. You analyzed it. You just need to have a sound narrative that backed it up. And I explained that we have a 4 hours low here. It was respecting in the morning. And now we have a 1 hour fair value gap here. This is a 1 hour fair value gap here. You see how we cut that bias right to that. So if you had taken that trade, you should be in massive profit. All right, so now we have this. I don't want to see it come lower. We have this 1 hour fair value gap here. I have this 1 hour fair value gap here. I want to see just push right to that buy side there. Okay, we're almost reaching our target. So you should know by now why we took this trade. You should know this more like we can call it a trend line phantom, a moving average phantom, whatever. Because let me try adding our moving average here. Let me see what we get here. Exactly. So for the moving average phantom, as I had explained earlier, it should be the moving average phantom. You trade it in time too, because price is scheduled. You don't just trade it randomly. So you see how the candlesticks are below the moving average here. The candlesticks are below the moving average. Once it gets to the 1 hour fair value gap, and you see how it has taken out people that were selling here, that were using sell stop here, like people were placing stuff because of the CLD is dripping, sell, 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 sell. So they want to also place their sell stops here. So they start putting on their sell stop. Luckily, they will be in profit. People that started selling putting their sell stop here, people that started still putting their sell stop here will also still be in profit. But once we get above the moving average, have you seen that? And it started taking out these highs here. And also, you will notice, you see, it is this candlestick here that took out this high. So this is literally a breaker here. This is a breaker block if you've been following. That's what I'm saying, that if you understand this, the moving average phantom will be quite easy. I'm trying to put this stuff back inside. So it got so close to our buy side and it's fairly. So once it spiked up, took out this high here, that is a shift in market structure. It created a fair value gap, came back right in that fair value gap, and we took the buys right there. Nothing. So remember, this is a breaker here. This would have been another entry. Like once a fair value gap and a breaker. Why is this a breaker? Because this is the high that made this lower low. So a high, a lower low, shifting market structure. You take that breaker. That's a breaker block there. So this is a boring stuff, right? It's like it repeats every time. It gets boring as you get to see it over time. So you should just train your eyes to see this. So this is the moving average phantom. I believe that you understand this moving average phantom now. So for the moving average settings, like we use the moving average settings. So we have a style here. We use I use the 35. Doesn't matter, but you need to be 35 to 50. All right, so you can use 35 to 50. Okay, 50. If you use 50, it's still okay. Listen, it's still okay. So you need to be around 35 to 50. Okay. Right. You see how price is really struggling to get to that buy side there. Really, really struggling. But it should do that in a few moments. So if you get this moving average phantom, you'll be like Robin Hood. So I came back to this fair value gap here. See how price came back. This stuff is an algorithm. If you just understand the movement, you've gotten it. It's as cheap as that. Very simple logic. You don't need to be selling when people are selling. You don't need to be buying when people are buying. You just need to try to do the opposite of what everybody is doing. Like, for example, the moving average phantom, you are trying to do the opposite of what people that are trading with the moving average does. So if they are planning to take a sell, us, we are planning a buy. So easy, we are doing the opposite of that. So we want to see the buy side now booked. So as I told you guys, we still have a buy side resting above here, but we are taking this simple one here first. And you can already see how difficult it is to get to that. Another question. What currency pair? Okay. You can actually take this on any currency pair of your choice. To still the same thing, but I'll advise you stay on Euro USD, GBP USD, and USD JPY. Also US 100 and US 500. This strategy will work perfectly there. Do you understand? You need to train your eyes to get used to this. Like, you need to be able to see this setup happen every time. It happens every time on the chart. It happens every time. Let me check for another example. That will soon get booked. Yeah. Sorry, that. All right. It's easy as that. You see how we just matched TP with simple logic. So you know the logic that was behind that. I explained it from A to Z. So this is the moving average phantom presented right to you guys. By now, people should be cashing out with this. I'm just doing all this for free, not charging any amount of money or something.